Barry is a phenomenal show. It is truly excellent. I have very few, if any, criticisms about this show, most of which will either not bother you or will be subjective. Alec Berg and Bill Hader should be very proud of themselves for creating one of the greatest and most unique shows that I have ever seen. The best part about Barry is that it is a show that gets better and better with each season, making this a show worth investing your time in. Now, I'm going to say something, and you can tell me in the comments whether my assessment is correct or not, but Bill Hader is not a big-name actor. Yes, he's been in many big films, but he's not an actor that I think many people have heard of. You probably recognise his face, as he's typically cast in a supporting character role, but he's never really a standout. Bill Hader has been in films like Hot Rod, Superbad, Tropic Thunder, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and Paul. Yet I have a feeling that more than a few of you have watched those films, but can't remember what characters he played. It's not that he gave bad or weak performances in any of those films, but was instead outshone by the larger, more famous casts of those films. Barry feels like Bill Hader doing everything in his power to make sure you know he deserved to be in those films, and is much more than what those films would have you believe. He is fantastic in this show. He gives Barry just enough likability so that you can never grow to hate him, despite some of the objectively awful things his character does, but also injects him with a slight detachment from reality and humanity, making his harsher actions feel like a natural response for the character, instead of the writer strong-arming his character to fit the story they want to tell. Bill Hader is a writer on the show as well, and you can tell that he, along with the rest of the writers in the room, have a clear understanding of all the characters they are writing for. There was a moment in Season 3, this is an extremely minor spoiler, so don't worry, where Sally is pitching her show to the executives, and she's annoyed at them for wanting to turn a show into a cut-and-dry, black-and-white tale. She argues this shouldn't be the case because she wants her show to reflect real life, and real life is often grey and muddied. This is something that the actual show of Barry accomplishes perfectly, this feeling of grey, of not being sure how you should feel about a certain character. The characters in Barry are often bad people, yet you like them. It's funny that the actual criminals in Barry are often the kindest characters in the show, while the actors and casting directors and whoever in the business come across as phony and unlikable. You see Barry do truly terrible things, yet you want him to come out the other end unscathed, despite knowing he deserves what's coming to him. Sally is a character I initially disliked because she came across as entitled and narcissistic. You discover the trauma she faced in her life and it flips how you view her, only for your opinion to flip again when you realise how abusive and cold she can be to those around her. She's a classic case of the bullies becoming the bully, and it makes you question what she deserves. Gene is a bit of a douche, but comes across as harmless until you discover the many enemies he made in the industry due to his behaviour and conduct. These characters are not what many people consider good guys, but you see them grapple with their morality and try to change for the better, and let's be honest, who doesn't love a redemption story? You will also see them give up at a hurdle that is just a little higher than they would like, or just completely turn their back on redemption altogether. Barry is a beautifully written story with wonderful, well fleshed out characters. However, despite his amazing performance and superb writing, the biggest surprise is how good Bill Hader is at directing, with all the best episodes being directed by him, including my favourite episode, Season 2, Episode 5, Ronnie Lilly. This isn't to imply the other directors aren't good, or even as good as Bill Hader, as like with all other aspects of this show, there is a consistent level of quality present in all episodes. However, there's just something different about Bill Hader episodes, especially when it comes to action. Barry features some of the most memorable action scenes that I've ever seen in a TV show, or even a movie for that matter. I've seen some people refer to these action scenes as being exciting, but I would disagree. That's not the word I would use when describing the action in Barry. To me, an exciting action sequence is the church fight in Kingsman: The Secret Service, or any fight in a John Wick film. They are fast-paced and feel kinetic. You also feel like you are a part of the action, as the camera often sticks to the protagonist of the sequence, leaving you on the edge of your seat. Barry is not like this. Instead of exciting, the word I would use is engaging. The action scenes in Barry are slower than what you would find in Kingsman or John Wick, and often pause to allow you to digest what you just saw happen to some unfortunate person who happened to cross paths with Barry. They also don't stick to Barry, allowing you to focus on other parts of the action. In fact, there are times where you may lose track of where Barry is, as your eyes are drawn to the attacker tripping and accidentally shooting their friends. Like the show itself, Barry's action is unique, and I'm very happy to learn that Bill Hader is planning to direct every episode in Season 4. Now I'm going to hop off the Bill Hader train, as I feel like I've ridden it for long enough, and talk about a few of the other elements of Barry that work so well. Sarah Goldberg is an actress that I'm unfamiliar with before watching Barry, and after taking a glance at her Wikipedia, it seems that it's down to her being more of a theatre actress than a film and television actress, despite an appearance here and there, making her the perfect choice for the character of Sally Reed, an actress struggling to break into the industry despite her clear talent. Like I said earlier, I initially didn't like Sally. She was annoying and would often take advantage of Barry and the people around her, so that she could prop herself up. She came across as egotistical and lacking in both empathy and sympathy, even though she was more than happy to lecture Barry on how he should behave, some of which he deserves, others a bit more debatable. What's amazing about Sarah's performance is that she was able to take a character that I kind of despised and wouldn't mind dying, and made her a sympathetic character where I could understand her actions while still recognising that they were wrong. Sally is a brilliant character, and probably the most morally grey out of every character in the show, and Sarah is able to prevent Sally from tipping too far in either direction. Henry Winkler is the most famous face in the Barry cast, obviously best known as playing the Fonz in Happy Days, but I was personally more familiar with his performances in Arrested Development, which is another show you should totally watch, after Barry of course, and Parks and Recreation, and a British kids show called Hank Zipser, which he is the co-creator of, as well as starring in. Like Bill and Sarah, Henry Winkler is the perfect casting decision for Gene Cosino, who in some ways feel like an alternate universe version of Henry Winkler himself. Gene is an aging actor who is long past his time in the sun and can only get small extra roles with one line of dialogue that have a good chance of getting cut out of the film, even if he does get cast. He has burned every bridge with Hollywood and spends his days teaching acting to a bunch of actors he knows have no chance of entering the industry. However, it's his attempts to right his wrongs that make Gene so interesting. Clearly, to me, it seems that he is at first doing it out of selfish reasons to clear his conscience and to get back in the industry that spat him out. But over time, it does look like he is actually changing for the better, and he occasionally does something good that would have no benefit to him. It's possible he'll revert to his old ways, but for now it seems like he's actually trying to better himself. Now, these three actors are incredible, but the true standout of Barry is Anthony Carrigan as NoHo Hank. He steals every scene he's in and is a true delight to watch. I was actually familiar with Anthony Carrigan before Barry, as I remembered his brief appearance as the Mist in The Flash and his much more substantial appearance as Victor Zsasz in Gotham. He was good in both of them, but he is just magnificent in Barry. NoHo Hank is a very charming man and a character that you can't help but smile when you see. He's just delightful, and a lot of the laugh out loud moments come from his character. However, despite his comedic brilliance, Anthony Carrigan is great in the few serious scenes that he's asked to perform in, especially the scenes in the season 3 finale. Also, I love his relationship with Cristobal, and they are two characters that I want to receive happiness, which is shocking considering they are the actual criminals in the show. Lastly, there's Fuchs. Now I have to admit, I've lost interest in Fuchs. This is not Stephen Root's fault. He is amazing as Fuchs, and I believe Fuchs was a great character in season 1 and 2. It's just that he kind of got pushed to the side in season 3. He's still an important piece on the board, it's just that the writers use him more as a plot device instead of developing his character in season 3. Which is fine, he's received development throughout the show, it's just that he's been overshadowed by other characters in my opinion. Since I'm talking subjective negatives, my only other issue with Barry is the comedy. Overall, the comedy is good in this show, but there are times where a joke doesn't land, or isn't really funny. This is more of an issue in the first season, where the show was still figuring out what it wanted to be, than the last two seasons which have progressively gotten darker and darker. The show clearly learned to lean into its stronger elements. Another non-issue I have is that the story is about Hitman becoming an actor. However, over time the acting part of the show has taken more of a backseat to the Hitman side of the show, at least in Barry's storyline. This is what made the show unique, and it may sound like the show is foregoing this for more generic material about a hitman trying to avoid being killed or arrested. But I would disagree. Barry constantly juggles these two parts of his life and does everything he can to escape the hitman world into the acting world. Yet the hitman world won't let go and constantly creeps back into his life. The fact that the hitman side of his life took almost full control of Barry's storyline in season 3 was a great decision and felt like a natural progression for his character and the show's plot. My only other issue with this show is a hypothetical one. Barry is an amazing show, no question. However, I'm worried about how this show will end. I remember recently finishing Ozark, which is another great show, but my only problem with that show was its ending, which was fine. It wasn't bad, but it was also probably the weakest episode of the entire series. To be blunt, it wasn't very satisfying. It wasn't a disappointment either, just an okay end to a truly great series. I really don't want that for Barry. Yeah, it's better than a terrible end, but I think Barry deserves better than an alright ending. I don't want this show to be another masterpiece ruined by a dodgy final act. I also hope the show doesn't do the classic ambiguous ending, where you don't really know what happened and have to look up a bunch of articles explaining the ending and YouTube videos pointing out all the minute details that you missed. Most of the time, this is just what the person believes the ending represents instead of what was actually intended. I personally hate this type of ending, but I could definitely see the show going for that type of ending, especially after Barry's drug-fueled hallucinations, which I thought perfectly turned the line between being artsy and understandable. All in all, Barry is an amazing show that you should drop everything to watch immediately, and I am waiting with huge excitement for when season 4 drops, whenever that may be. Anyway, see ya.